After the eviction moratorium, some landlords just want to evict those tenants and they don't care about the back rent. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the fact that a lot of landlords, they just don't care about these rental assistance programs. They don't care about getting any of this back rent. They just want these tenants out of their units, okay? They want these tenants out, and they want to be able to put tenants that are paying into their properties, okay? And there's a multitude of reasons why this is, and the article actually goes over a few of those reasons. And, of course, I'm going to elaborate on what I think of everything that's happening in this article as well. But before I get into the article, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know, what your reasons would be for just wanting to evict rather than accept rental assistance. I know in my case, if I had a tenant I just couldn't get along with, who wouldn't communicate with me, I'd want to just get them the heck out of the property rather than trying to coerce them into applying for rental assistance and then being stuck with that tenant in my property, for who knows how long after that. So this article comes from nny360.com, and it says, some landlords looking to evict tenants, back rent paid or not. A member of the St. Lawrence County Fair Housing Task Force says some landlords aren't concerned about back rent owed by tenants during the eviction moratorium. They just want them out of their building. They just want the tenants out of their apartments, their single-family homes. They just want them out. Governor Code Enforcement Officer Mike McQuaid told task force members Thursday, "That's the unfortunate part. They're willing to take that $9,000, $10,000, $12,000 loss just to get these people out of the apartments." He said he has heard the same sentiment from several landlords. And I have heard the same sentiment as well, okay? And like I was saying, there are a multitude of good reasons, okay? So one of the things was, I had read that in many places they put these stipulations on the rental assistance, right? That says that if you accept rental assistance, you have to keep that tenant in your property, sometimes indefinitely, even if they don't pay anything going forward into the future. So you take that $12,000 now that they owe you, and they don't have to ever pay you again. They could just stay in that, that unit, that house, that apartment, whatever, for 2-3 years not paying. Why would you accept that? That's a horrible deal, okay? I mean, what you want is you want to be able to get a consistent cash flow. You don't want to be sitting around waiting for government stimulus checks to come out. So yeah, I mean, that's just one reason. Another reason why you might not want to accept rental assistance is that, simply put, you might have other plans for that property. Okay, so I know that some landlords are just keeping the properties rented until they can move back into that property themselves, or maybe they're using it as a retirement thing so that they can sell it, and then live off of that as part of their retirement. They don't want a tenant in the property when they're trying to sell it, or they don't want a tenant in the property if they want to move back into it themselves. So they just got to get that tenant out, whether they take a loss or not. And there's a lot of really good reasons to want to get the tenant out of there. Another good one would be, hey, maybe I want to fix this property up, okay, and then be able to rent it for a much, much higher amount. I know that there are sometimes hey, I bought a property with a tenant already in it. I'm just waiting for this tenant to leave so that I can really do a lot of really good improvements on the property, and then sometimes raise the rent much, much higher. But if you're forced to keep a low-paying tenant in your property, I mean, this is a business, okay? We should be allowed to make good business decisions for ourselves. And that's what these eviction moratoriums have not allowed us to do for way too long. Fortunately, the federal moratorium is over, but in the case of New York State, of course, they've implemented a new one, and that's where this article is coming out of. They just want these people out of their homes, he said. John Tinbush, a planner with the St. Lawrence County Planning Department, wondered if relations between landlords and tenants had always been toxic. Absolutely, Mr. McQuaid said. He said tenants often know the system. When you can tell these tenants that they don't have to pay, they're going to stop, he said. Hypothetically, I have a landlord that's owed $18,000 in back rent for over a year and a half. How are that landlord and tenant going to agree? That landlord just wants that individual out of the house, take the loss, and leave. That's the difficulty with this moratorium. Now, before the eviction moratorium, I've had tenants before who didn't pay me rent, and even tenants I've had to evict before, okay? And the thing is, going after the tenants for the thousands of dollars that they owe you isn't even worth it a lot of the times, because they can't pay you. They just don't have the money. So you're spending a lot of money on attorneys, etc., and you're not able to actually get any money back. So I've just let some losses go. I have been able to recover money from some tenants before in the past, but man, it's just not worth it for a lot of these landlords. And especially for the smaller landlords, because all the lawyer fees, etc., are expensive. So they just want their unit to be empty. They want their house or their apartment to be emptied out. They want to get a paying tenant back in there, and they want to get the ball rolling again. Oh man. So at the same time, McQuaid said, some of the tenants, when you tell them you don't have to pay, you see deliveries. I had one the other day. They set up a pool. They haven't paid rent in 6 months. That's where I have the difficulty with this agreement thing between the tenant and landlord. They're not going to come together. If this started 3 months ago, you'd have a good chance. You're talking over a year and a half. That's a tough sell. And he brings up a really, really good point right there, okay? If we were talking about, 2-3 months, that's completely different versus a year and a half. Okay, so we have tenants now that haven't paid rent in places like New York for a year and a half. And they're telling landlords, oh, you have to work with the tenant. The tenant should have been working with the landlord from the beginning if they couldn't pay rent. If they have gone a year and a half and they're putting pools in and buying all sorts of crap, then they're not doing things right, okay? These tenants are purposefully not paying rent so that they can basically live for free off of the landlord's backs. The landlord, puts all their money in so that these other people can live for free. That's why, these eviction moratoriums should never have been legal in the first place. They should have never been legal. They're 100% illegal. They're 100% unconstitutional, and they have to end in places like New York especially, okay? Now, I just did an article about how the California state eviction moratorium looks like it's going to end, so I'm hoping that something happens and this New York one gets torn down as well. Courtney Toms, Deputy Director of Massena's Maximizing Independent Living Choices, said in a written report to the task force that one of the problems they face is a refusal by tenants to apply for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Something we did not expect was the refusal by tenants to apply, she wrote. We have had many landlords reach out to us to file an application, but their tenants have refused. They have told us they don't want their landlord to be paid due to interpersonal conflict that happened after the tenant stopped paying rent. We have had a couple of landlords refuse to apply because they are trying to evict for nuisance reasons, but that has been rare. We've had many landlords report that they are unable to contact their tenants about the program. So yeah, they didn't realize that these scammer tenants don't even want to apply because they're trying to stick it to the landlords, okay? So meanwhile, these states and all that, oh, we have to stick up for these poor tenants. These tenants are purposefully trying to screw over these landlords. That's all they're doing. And, the landlords trying to apply to evict for nuisance reasons are the rare minority, according to this article. So you see the problem with all these rental assistance programs. The second they said they made the focus of the rental assistance to make sure that the tenant got paid instead of the landlord, then that's why these programs are failing. Okay, they are failing the landlord. The tenants are not protected. The tenants who need protection are not getting protected because the landlords are not getting paid from them. Okay, these rental assistance programs are a complete joke. Okay, the eviction moratorium is a complete joke. I want this whole thing to just be shut down. And places like New York, I mean, Come on, man. This is completely ridiculous. So what we end up with now is we got a bunch of landlords who are owed money. They don't care anything about trying to even recover the money. They just want those tenants out. And I don't blame them one bit. Let's just get the tenants out. Let's get paying tenants back in, and let's get the ball rolling again. And let's end all these eviction moratoriums as soon as possible.